so much, Greg. Thank you for having us here on your ancestral homelands. We're really your guests and doing our best to be respectful of this space. So before we get started with our panel, I'm going to share some words about the intention for this gathering on behalf of Miwkoʔ Foundation and our community here and our relatives here, and in this context of Climate Week in San Francisco, right, the tech capital of the world, and in the greater context of the climate crisis that we're in, and also the general poly crisis, because it's a compounded series of crises that we're currently going through. It's an extinction crisis, it's a climate crisis, it's a humanitarian crisis, it's a spiritual crisis. There's many layers to what's going on, and from our perspective, from the perspective of those of us who study with Indigenous people and value the Indigenous perspectives, we're not really looking at, well, how can we be more sustainable? How can we be more green? How can we be more efficient in our technologies? That's not really the question that's going to get us through the times that we're in, but it's really a matter of how can we shift our consciousness and our perspective to understand that our relationship with nature is not something that's external to us, but that is a part of our own being. We are nature. It's not something that's out there that we need to go and rescue and save, but that we are intrinsically a part of nature. Nature is us, and everything that happens to nature is happening to ourselves. And this is where the perspectives of so many of our Indigenous relatives and communities around the world have in common is this understanding, this knowledge, this truth that we are inseparable from our environment, from our habitat and the elements. And so anything that's going on in our external environment is also happening to us. And then the question becomes, well, then how can we create from that place? How can we design systems and societies from a place of understanding that nature is intrinsically ourselves, and that this isn't a question of natural resources and how to extract natural resources in more efficient ways or more sustainable ways, but to understand that nature is the source and not a resource, and have this paradigm shift in our relationship to the natural world, and to how we then go about designing companies, systems, technology, solutions, etc., within all realms of society. So that is our focus and our mission, and the messages that we really want to uplift and emphasize in these times that we're in. So prioritizing the well-being of the conditions for all life over profit, essentially, and finding ways to bridge those gaps and create transitionary plans to ways of being that are in harmony with the cycles and the rhythms of nature. We know, for example, that when the natural world is in the stewardship of Indigenous people and Indigenous communities, the biodiversity thrives. And currently on the planet, Indigenous people are at the forefront of the stewardship of over 83% of the remaining biodiversity. And Indigenous people are only 6% of the global population. We also know that when Indigenous people are in the stewardship of biodiversity, the flora and fauna and biodiversity thrives at a much higher rate, because land regeneration projects or regenerative agroforestry projects or any kind of sustainable climate impact projects don't become just a physical endeavor, but Indigenous communities tend to take the entire system of life into consideration, including the spiritual elements that create life and create the conditions for all life. And so bringing Indigenous voices to the forefront of these conversations and being able to empower those voices is really critical in our strategy for managing the poly crisis that we're currently going through, all of us collectively on our home planet, spaceship Earth. And and so at Huria Aniwa, we have a land conservation project in Mexico that is a reforestation project. It's a food sovereignty project, a food security project. It's a water conservation project. It's a biodiversity conservation project on this really precious and special piece of land where there is many different species of lynxes and pumas and jaguars and plants, over 500 species of plants. And it's a center that we're working towards building for a space to gather Indigenous collectives that the Aniwa organization has been working with for over a decade to come and share their knowledge and solutions and answers and messages with one another, with all of us. And the experience that we've had with Aniwa Gathering and Aniwa Digital is that when these leaders and teachers, some of whom are here with us, have a platform wherein they can share their ancestral wisdom, it's a really effective way to be able to receive it in our hearts and be able to make that shift internally and embody the solutions that we're all responsible for. Simultaneously, it's really up to us to not put all of the responsibility on Indigenous people to solve these problems for us or be responsible for the solutions, but take responsibility in all of our own individual daily lives with every single decision that we make, every single purchase that we make, our lifestyles, and considering what are the products and companies that we are supporting and empowering, and the impact that that is having, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, so that we can think in sustainable ways for all the future generations to come. And that is our individual responsibility for all of us who are currently alive on this planet and have the capacity to do so. So that is the context, the framing of bringing us all together. Thank you for being here and showing up with your time and your presence. And with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Ed to moderate the panel. And a brief introduction to Edward West here. Edward is the founder and principal of Applied Alchemy, a venture studio and strategic consulting agency building high-impact regenerative initiatives across the built environment, AI, clean energy, regenerative agriculture, and cultural preservation. Wow. He is the founder of Tesseract, did I say that correctly? Developing regenerative homes, villages, and neighborhoods, and is the director of strategy at Levangie Labs, bringing frontier AI agents to the world. He co-founded Mission Motors, whose electric powertrain work helped give rise to the Harley-Davidson Livewire and Hilo, a social network for collaborative communities. He's been busy. Edward's been busy. A director at Children of the Rainforest. Edward has a deep 6-year relationships with the Yawanawa people, visiting their villages, raising funds for cultural preservation, and supporting the creation of Isku Wakahuhu, a school to preserve the Yawanawa language and tradition and traditions. He holds a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Yale and an MBA from Presidio Graduate School. So we are in very competent hands. Thank you so much, Edward, for being here and for moderating this panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here. It's an honor to be here with all of you. I think we'll kind of go, I had some words about context, but I think that everything's been said. There's one sort of provocative statement that Elsa made when we were talking about the panel that I'll pass on to you. She said, is the climate something outside to fix, or is it simply a reflection of the weather inside of us? And so we're going to explore today what we can learn from intact Indigenous cultures about their relationship with the earth and what it means to be a steward of the earth, and what indigeneity means to all of us. So thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce our esteemed panelists, starting from Rasu. So we're lucky to have here today, from the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, Chief Rasu Yawanawa. Chief Rasu is a spiritual leader, healer, and cultural guardian of the Yawanawa people, known as the people of the wild boar. They have called the Rio Gregorio indigenous land deep in the Brazilian Amazon home for millennia. Rasu is the grandson and spiritual heir of the great Page, Tata Chana Natashini. Rasu was chosen from an early age to carry forward the sacred lineage of healing, songs, and forest knowledge, undergoing rigorous initiations in deep communion with the spirit of the plants. He is a visionary bridge builder. He was the first to weave new musical elements into traditional Yawanawa sacred song, rekindling younger generations' connection to their language and culture, and bringing ancestral Amazonian voices to global audience through his collaboration with Brazilian artist Alok. Chief Rasu comes to this gathering as a living testament to the power of rootedness, a guardian of the forest and all of the wisdom that it holds. So thank you for being here, Rasu. We also are, we're also lucky to have Oona Chaplin. And Oona is here today, and she has recently lit up the screens worldwide as the Avatar franchise's fiery new villain, Varang, where she has showcased her skill as an actress in a film that so vividly captures the battle between indigenous cultures and the colonial extractivist forces that are putting the world in peril. She is an artist, a cultural bridge, a land steward, and a mother, and has been an ally and advocate for the Huya Aniwa family for many, many years. Thank you, Oona, so much for being here. We have Don Hankins, a Miwkoʔ cultural practitioner, a professor and field director at Cal State University, Chico. His work focuses on indigenous stewardship, including cultural burning, water systems, and landscape-scale resilience, bridging traditional ecological knowledge with contemporary environmental practice. He collaborates with organizations and indigenous communities across North America and Australia on conservation, land stewardship, and policy. Don is also an accomplished artist with work that reflects Miwkoʔ stories and the natural world. Thank you. And immediately to my left, I have Will Grant. Will is the Director of Community Action and Strategy at the Pachamama Alliance, where he leads climate action trainings and designs strategies for community-led climate change. As co-creator of Pachamama Alliance's Community Action Training Program, he has cultivated grassroots leaders across 15 countries, integrating political strategy, somatic awareness, and community building into a globally scaled movement. Rooted in the belief that local action is the most powerful lever for systemic change, Will works to shift people from paralysis to purpose, turning individual commitment into collective transformation. Thank you, Will. Okay, all right. Let's get this party started here. So I'm going to start just quickly with a single question that's the same question for each of you, to start to bring out a little bit of your own perspectives, bring your voices into the room, and try to keep your answer 60 seconds to 90 seconds, even though it's a big question. And then I have a handful of individual questions for each of you, and we'll explore and weave, and we can talk to each other too, and we'll figure it out. Hopefully this will be fun and lively and keep moving along. So thank you all for being here. I will start with Rasu. If you're willing to share with us, what is the earth to you, and what does it mean to be a steward of the earth?
Boa tarde a todos. Estou muito feliz de poder estar aqui e sou uma jovem liderança do nosso povo e quero pedir licença para poder compartilhar umas palavras com vocês sobre essa pergunta.
Good afternoon all. I'm a young leader of my people and I would like to ask for permission to share a few words and answer this question.
Bom, a pergunta, o que é a Terra para nós? A Terra para nós é um ser vivo para todos nós.
So the question, what is the earth for us? The earth for us is a living being to all of us.
Assim como o Criador criou nós seres humanos, Ele também criou tudo. E tudo hoje que existe tem vida. Então a Terra é um grande ser vivo que dá vida para todos, desde o pequeno aos maiores sobreviventes. E a gente vive hoje aqui nesse mundo.
The same as the Creator gave life to us, the Creator gave life to everything that exists here on earth, all the living beings, since the very small one to the biggest one. So if we are here surviving, it's because of it.
O que é ser um guardião da Terra? Ser um guardião da Terra é ser um ser humano que tem amor, que tem paz, que tem tranquilidade e que reconhece a obra que o Criador deixou para todos nós usufruir e aproveitar daquilo que a gente tem.
What is to be a guardian of the earth is to be to have love and peace, and also to enjoy everything that the Creator gave to us. That it's a gift, and be aware of it and enjoy it.
Porque tem hoje, o que nós estamos vivendo, as pessoas sugando, tirando, né, da terra muitas coisas que estão trazendo muita transformação na consciência, nas pessoas e no modo de viver, no modo de olhar o que nós temos, né, hoje visto pela humanidade, pelo tempo que está se passando.
Because nowadays many people are draining and taking out from the earth without having the consciousness, the awareness that everything that is changing around us, it's because of it. So we are losing the awareness of it, and we are passing through these really tough times.
E você ser um guardião, você precisa estar com a consciência aberta para receber e para entender isso. Não é só você morar num lugar que tem floresta ou que tem água, não. É o seu coração, a sua vida, o seu trabalho, o seu direcionamento. Assim você se torna um guardião, independente que você seja do Havaí, né, da floresta, dos Estados Unidos, de qualquer lugar. Mas se você tem a consciência do que fazer o certo é o certo e o errado não pode fazer, isso é ser o guardião da terra.
And to be a guardian, you have to have the consciousness about it. You have to be aware of it. It's not only enough to live like around the forest. You have to be knowing within your heart that you have to take care of the elements of the water and everything that is around us. So it doesn't matter where you live, if you live in Hawaii, around the forest, or in the United States, but if you have the consciousness within your heart that you have to take care of the things, and the right things is the right things, and the wrong things is the wrong things, and choose with awareness what you have to do. That's how you can be a guardian of this earth.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pass to Oona. What is the earth to you, and what does it mean to be a steward of the earth?
I mean, I don't have anything to add. That was impeccable. You know, it is. It's like the earth. Goodness, it's our home. It's our mother. It is a living being. We are in relationship with it, whether we want to or not, whether we know how we're doing it or not. Thank you. Hi. Is that better? So, yeah, the living being that is our home and our mother and our everything. And to be a steward of the earth, you know, I think it really is, it is, you know, so well put. Rasu, thank you always for your clarity and the love and the peace, the inner, the heart of the steward of the earth wherever we are. You know, and the responsibility that comes with that love and that peace to take care and to care for the relationships, whether it's your family, your children, your food, your water, your environment, you know, to take care of all of the relationships, you know, and the more you love, the more you can take care of, and then, and yeah, I mean, it's infinite. It's a very big question. You're really good in answering that, so thank you. That was my attempt, but that
was
really, I
beautiful.
mean, he spoke my heart, so thank you for that.
You nailed it too. That's,
Is it working? No.
yeah, it's all right.
It's kind of faint, a little bit faint,
Yeah.
but when I think about this question, I think in Miwkoʔ, in our language, there are two words, wali, which means the land, and kik, which means the water. And when we're born, traditionally we're born into a system that either puts us in the land or the water, and we have responsibilities that we were born with. And when we're born with that stewardship is tied not just for our living today, but is bringing the generations of the past to where we're at today, to where we are in the future. And depending on the elder, some of the elders say it was 3 generations, some say 7 generations, but it's long-term planning. It's long-term planning. So we're thinking time periods, 200 years maybe in the past, 200 years into the future, and our instructions are to leave the world in a better place than it is today. It's good or better condition as it is today. And so while my predecessors, the generations before me, may have struggled to have that access to be stewards, I see it as our responsibility now to take that place and responsibility to bring it forward so that the next generations can benefit from what we've created.
Thank you.
When I think of what the Earth is, it's what everyone has said, but the Earth is us. We are the Earth. There is no separation between us. And so when I think of what stewardship is, I think it's coming into that recognition that the Earth loves us just as much as we love it. And sometimes I have trouble with the word stewardship. It feels a little bit above, because I am deeply taken care of by the Earth, and I'm just returning that. And so, and I think, you know, in this context of the life in which we're living right now, because we're trapped in so many systems that are extractive, and it's really difficult. I'm using a mic that God knows what has gone into making this, right? It's not going to biodegrade anytime soon. But to be in this world, for me, it is to look around us and look at all the places that we can find actions of regeneration that we can take. That it is about forest restoration and taking care of the rivers, but it's also about helping people reconnect to the earth around them. To step out of this myth of separation within ourselves and with each other and in the political systems that we're in, and looking at the place of social regeneration, ecological regeneration, political regeneration. And I think people can often feel that it's difficult to do it at the large systems, but to me, relationship with the earth is always local at its beginning. No matter what policies get created, at the end it comes down to what is the health of this river, what is the health of this neighborhood, what is the health of this school, and then that adds up to a regenerated world.
Thank you. Rasu, I'd like to ask you a question. So you grew up in an environment that's very different than a lot of the environments where we grew up here in the city, perhaps many of us. What is something that in your travels now all over the world, what's something that has surprised you most, both in terms of what people seem to understand well in the cities, but what is it that they also seem to miss most deeply that is something that you grew up within the milieu of, within the experience of, or the fabric of?
essa pergunta tem várias respostas, mas eu só quero explicar aqui um pouco da nossa diferença entre o que hoje as pessoas do mundo que se dizem representar a humanidade pensam e o que nós pensamos como povos indígenas.
Well, this question can have a lot of different answers, but I'm just gonna say something about the Westerns. The people nowadays, they're the ones that say that they can represent the world, but it's very different the way that we think as people of the forest.
Nós, indígenas, a gente tem um amor pelo ser humano desde quando nasce até o último dia, o último respiro que ela tem. E dentro disso é a nossa responsabilidade cuidar dos nossos pais, dos nossos filhos, das nossas esposas, até os últimos dias das nossas vidas.
We indigenous people, we have a big love in our heart that we have this responsibility to take care of the people that are around us, of our families, our parents, our children, and our partners. So in this way, we have this responsibility of taking care of them until the very last breath of our life.
E os nossos velhos, eles são um livro aberto para que a gente possa ter o conhecimento e dar continuidade à nossa cultura. E hoje eu vejo que na cidade grande, quando as pessoas, os antigos estão já ficando velhos, que não conseguem se movimentar, eles ficam isolados, ficam ali para comer, se alimentar e dali partir, não tem o cuidado, perdeu a conexão de família.
For us, our elders, they are like open books, and we always take care of them because they are the ones that give us the knowledge to keep going. And here in the big cities, what I see when someone is getting to the old age, then they ended up just staying in isolation in a different place by themselves, many times being taking care from all the people as well, just eating pretty much, and then we forget about them, So for us, that's very different, because that lose the connection of a family.
E isso para nós é muito forte, porque a gente não tem esse coração. Desde quando a gente nasce, a nossa responsabilidade é de cuidar dos nossos velhos, de nossa mãe. Assim, a futura geração vai cuidar também da gente. Isso é uma diferença muito grande, que eu vejo que o ser humano perdeu o amor, perdeu a união, o respeito entre famílias, saber o que realmente é família, não misturar os negócios, o poder, os preconceitos, os cuidados que existem, porque isso é tudo que nós temos. Família representa tudo, não importa o que você está fazendo, o que você vive, o que você tem, mas todas as coisas que a gente leva são as boas obras da nossa vida que a gente faz, principalmente com a nossa família.
So this for us is very strong in this way, because then you lose this straight connection. It's our responsibility to take care of our elders, of our mothers, and all our relatives like that. So for us, that's something that we can notice that's really strong, so the human beings here in the city, they lost the fully connection, the union, and the sense of a family, because in those ways that we take care of our elders, our future generations can also take care of ourselves. So in this way, I feel that's something really strong when we lose totally the sense of this connection as a family.
E nós vivemos em união, uma coisa que é difícil ver. Aqui você trabalha para você ganhar o dinheiro, lá não, nós trabalhamos para sobreviver e manter aquilo que a gente precisa, que é a nossa comida, o nosso alimento. Isso aqui, se você tiver dinheiro, você não compra, você não anda, você não bebe água, você não dorme, tudo depende do dinheiro. Não, a floresta, nós temos o livre e aberto para poder viver com a natureza em união, em família.
And we live in union, and so also the Westerns comes with like this looking only for the power, You know, for us, we live in union, and for us, we have everything like the food, the water, and everything that we need. But in the city, everything you need money. So then you start to think a lot about the money and in your own business and things like that to really get the needs that you really need. So in this way, it's not the way that we live. You know, we really need, we really live on, with union as a family.
Então, esse é só pequeno exemplo dessa pergunta, mas existe muitas coisas, né, que também nós somos diferentes.
Well, so this is just like a short example of this question, but there are a lot of things that I could express how different we are.
Muito obrigado pela oportunidade.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'd love to ask Oona a question. And so a lot of your life and your work and your storytelling has evolved around this dialectic between colonial cultures and indigenous cultures. And as someone who's lived all over the world and whose heritage includes both settler and indigenous cultures, how has your understanding of indigeneity evolved throughout your life?
Thank you. So just so that the people that don't know me, my mother is a fantastic woman called Oona Chaplin. She is an English actress as well, an artist, and she is the daughter of Charlie Chaplin, who was an iconic force of storytelling in this world, and who a lot of people really love and really value, and he holds an incredible place in our storytelling history with the amount of people that he reached, you know. And he was kicked out of this country for it as well, you know. He was like, he was told to leave, and then here I am back in this country. My goodness. As an immigrant as well, and on my father's side, you know, there's a lot of there's things I can't talk about because some people will get into trouble still. But my grandmother was Miwkoʔ Mara, not culturally, just genetically. And but she was also, you know, she went barefoot to the city and she became the first lawyer in Chile who was a woman. First woman lawyer in Chile, much sooner than they did in France or Germany and other places. So she was a real revolutionary as well. But nothing about, she was convinced she was Basque. Like and you look at her, and she is a squat little Indian lady, and with like really like, you know, just you could draw like and it would be her. And genetically, you know, my cousin did a test. I'm totally not interested in the test, but you know, it turns out. But culturally, she was not. And so for me, I started, I was a city girl, a party animal. And I came to ayahuasca ceremony because I was really wanting to get really like crazy with my friends and like see what I see, you know? And then lo and behold, I found myself in a place where suddenly God exists and God is real. And nature is alive, and I had no idea, and I had to reorient my entire existence. And then the second time that I went, because I had to go back, I was completely fascinated. I'm sorry, this is taking a little.
That's great.
Yeah. When I went back, I had the great privilege of being in a ceremony that was led by a wonderful man called Miwkoʔ, who's the Huni Queen elder, and a really, really special man. And I became really fascinated with culture because there he was with his magnificent feathers, you know, being so very different to anything. And I was like, gosh, you guys co-evolved with this medicine. you guys understand the landscape where it comes from. Like, who are you? Like, how do you see the world? That's bonkers. Like this, and I became really fast. And then I suddenly was like, oh my goodness, I'm indigenous. My grandmother is Mapuche. Like, I have to go over there and go to Chile and reconnect. And like, what does it mean to be Mapuche? Like, how can I do that? And then when I arrived, I was so far away from anything that I could connect to, and I felt so very estranged, and did my very best to like plug in and find a way to be Mapuche, you know. And this, you know, kind of reminds me of the, you know, little talk that we briefly had downstairs. What Mapuche means person of the earth. Mapu is earth, and or this realm. It's not as simple, but it's this realm that we're in. The way, and you know, it's very simple and really, really hard to do, to really connect and become radically local. And that's what I think Indigenous is. If you look it up, it's belonging to a place. You know, what do you do to belong? We all want to, we all know it. That's why, you know, I did this film called Avatar, which I don't know if any of you guys have seen. Yeah. You guys watch Avatar? It's really good. So they, when we go to Avatar, you know, we all become blue, right? Everybody is a Na'vi in the audience. Nobody's like rooting for the guys that are with the big heavy machinery trying to kill all the whales, you know? Everybody's blue, and that feeling is something that we all have within ourselves, that is, you know, how good it feels to connect to a place. And that, you know, effort that we all have to make, now that I'm making here as an immigrant, even though I have this, you know, racially, you know, the blood that comes from this group that was oppressive, and that doesn't give me like anything, a clue as to how I can connect here. What does give me a clue is to, you know, to be in the presence of people like, you know, that the leaders that we have here today, that people that have a connection to place that is authentic and genuine and meaningful and significant, and that for me is a current, it's a feeling that is the great gift of Indigenous cultural leaders that carry their force of love and connection with integrity. To be in presence of people that have that depth of connection can help us help me remember what that feels like for myself. And now I live on land, and I'm just listening with everything that I got, and trying to become as local as I possibly can in my lifetime, knowing that, you know, it's a long road, and maybe my daughter, my granddaughter, you know, maybe they'll get somewhere. Maybe I'll get somewhere, I don't know. But all I can do is really give myself to that process of re-indigenizing, which is like a trendy word, but it really means something to me, you know? Yeah. First time I ever heard it was my husband saying it, and he never heard anyone else saying it. And so I was like, wow, you know, that's a really cool concept. Anyway, that talked a lot. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Dawn. So you spent a lot of your career finding building bridges between traditional ecological knowledge with contemporary science and environmental practices, cultural burning, water systems, landscape scale resilience, things like this. What have you found as a scientist that is so unique about these cultural practices, and how has that informed your understanding of traditional cultures and indigenous practices?
Edward, I think we might have to pass that mic.
This one sounds better than
yeah, because it's really hard
else's.
to hear that.
That better? Yeah. I can talk loud too.
This was the only one that doesn't have reverb.
A little bit of reverb, but I think it's...
We could just pass that.
All right, we'll use one of these.
Yeah, that was better.
All right. Great question. The one thing I would say that maybe is going to flip this thing is that as a scientist, I don't necessarily approach the science that I do as a Western trained scientist. It's a methodology that's there, but the indigenous knowledge system is always involved in the work that I do. You know, as a youth growing up in Ramaytush country here, having connections to Miwkoʔ, east of our sacred mountain, and having those experiences in that place. I grew up in a world in experiencing and seeing things not only through a lens of what my family taught me and later elders had further enforced, sharing a knowledge base, that as I was coming through an academic world, I was looking at the problems in conservation. My undergrad degree is in wildlife fish and conservation biology, by the way. And I would think, why are these species going extinct? And I'd say, well, this one needs fire. That one needs fire. Like so many of them needed fire. And so as I got into the opportunity of being able to do research, I could then frame the questions that I was working to resolve through that Indigenous framework of understanding, the way of looking at the world, knowing through, now looking back, through the creation story that starts with our responsibilities linking to, you know, species like condor at the very top, and how they all interrelate to one another. And it's really through that connection to place that really frames the way of understanding and the vision of that. And so getting to the communication side of it, I think that we all really relate to story pretty well. And so I try to not show graphs. You know, when I give a presentation, I'm not showing graphs. I'm showing a picture that we can connect to, tell a story that we all can hopefully experience, right? And bring people along with me on the journey. And that's my approach to it. I don't know if I answered your question 100% there, but that's how I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I've got a question for you, Will. So a lot of your career, your journey's been focused on education and movement building and climate action. What have you seen, what have you noticed that seems to really touch people the most to transform their perspective on Earth stewardship, on their relationship to the Earth? What are the things that seem to really impact people the most effectively in the journey you've been on?
That we can absolutely turn this culture and economy out of the meta crisis that we're in and live in a regenerated world. We have all the solutions that we need already here. Some of them are millennia old, some of them are new thinking, but we have all the solutions that we need. And that story can actually only be told really usually through images and experiences. And so one of the things that I love to do is to show land that's been impacted and destroyed, and then how within 5 to 10 years it can be absolutely healed and verdant and green. One of my favorite stories is that there's an area in China, in the Loess Plateau in the northwest, that had been was actually one of the cradles of agriculture in China and had been for thousands of years. And then after the revolution in '49, they brought in all this modern technology, and within 30 years it looked like the moon. It was just dead. Using regenerative agriculture, working with the people who lived there, within 10 years they revived 7 river systems. And they did it, and they also, all the people who were involved in it, 2.5 million people took themselves out of poverty using regenerative agriculture. And they revived, and what they learned is that it's not land versus the economy, that the land is the economy. And that, so as they were regenerating, the way that they regenerated the soil was by regenerating the rivers and the trees and all of the ecosystem, to the point where they've not only stopped all of the degradation, but it's now become home all the way up to top predators again. And so, and that was done with something that's basically the size of, the full size of what they did was the size of France. It's massive. And I think the element of stewardship and recognizing, because the other thing that I think is that the environmental movement, I grew up in the era of humans bad. You know, humans are a virus, humans are locusts, humans are cancer, humans are nothing. it was only when I came to California that I started to learn that the entire California ecology was shaped through a relationship between humans and all the species in the area, right? That the Sierra Nevadas are a tended garden, and so is the Amazon. And so that changed my story from this idea that, that I was, the best I could do is to do no harm, that humans are needed. We're needed in this world. We're a part of the ecosystem and the creation. And I find, especially when I work with young people, that they need, that sense to them is revolutionary. That's when they transform. So when you connect two things, that humans have a role to play, and that especially folks coming from non-Indigenous cultures, like, one of the ways that I've heard it said is that in the same way that humans are the youngest species and need to learn from our elders, it's, I think, folks from European descent, we are among the youngest cultures now, actually I would say it's the world of modernity is the youngest culture. We've only been around for about 120 years. And so to learn respectfully from the indigenous cultures as elder cultures, and then to take our role in co-creating the world around us, and to know that through that, we absolutely can be involved in regenerating this whole world. And I think that story, when I've told it to folks, gives them a sense. And then the question is, especially when I show pictures of regenerated land, the question is not, should we do this? The question is only, how are we going to do this? And then people get into action and they get
mobilized. I have a question for Chief Rasu, and I can bring this down, I guess. I was grateful and lucky to get to attend the movie. Some of you may have seen it, about Tata, the spirit of Tata, played a couple days ago. And it just told the story of Rasu's grandfather. And what I would love to hear from you, Rasu, is a story of growing up with Tata as you started to become aware of who he was as a young man, and is there any vivid memory of understanding what it meant to be part of this lineage, some of the earliest memories you have of sort of taking that in, and what that felt like to you to step into as a kind of sacred responsibility?
É uma pergunta muito forte para mim.
It's such a strong question for me.
Mas assim, para mim, o Tata ele nunca teve um filho homem. Ele teve só duas filhas, minha mãe e minha tia.
Well, Tata never had a son. He just had two daughters, my mother and my aunt.
E quando eu nasci, ele ficou muito feliz, muito animado e me adotou. Tomou da minha mãe ele e minha avózinha.
So when I was born, he was very happy and excited, and he adopted me. He took me from my mother and from my little grandmother.
E aí ele me começou a cuidar de mim desde os 3 meses.
And he started to take care of me since I was 3 months old.
E eu não bebi leite da cidade, não comia nada da cidade, eu vivi alimentando as comidas e também ouvindo as histórias e também a língua, tudo com ele assim na floresta.
And I wasn't raised eating the food from the city, knowing the drink, the milk, the breastfeeding like that, you know, and I was raised listening to his stories all the time and also listening to my mother language. So in this way it was the ways that I was raised, all listening all the teachings from the forest.
E quando eu fui crescendo, eu fui vendo o trabalho que ele fazia com a nossa família, com o nosso povo, o trabalho de cura, com as medicinas.
When I started to grow up, I started to witness the work that he was doing within our people, within our family.
E ele nunca me obrigou a estar perto das coisas das medicinas, não. Ele sempre deixava bem aberto para mim.
And he never obligated me to do things and to be close to him and to be working with the medicines. He always led up to me.
E aí eu fui entendendo, quando cheguei aos 13 anos, eu comecei a tomar medicina com ele.
So I started to understand a bit, and when I was 13 years old, I started to drink medicines with him.
E quando eu comecei a tomar medicina, eu vi que eu tinha uma missão na minha vida de poder dar continuidade ao trabalho e à espiritualidade, à cultura que ele tinha.
And when I started to take the medicine, I understood that I had a responsibility, you know, to carry on the work, the culture, the spirituality that he was holding.
E aí eu fui começando, chegando para perto, ouvindo mais, e dentro disso, quando chegou aos 17 anos, eu fui o primeiro jovem a fazer a dieta do Miwkoʔ de 1 ano, né, que só faz as pessoas que têm 40, 39, 50 anos.
I started to understand more and I started to get closer and closer to him. And when I was 17 years old, I was the first young person that completed the Miwkoʔ diet. That's the biggest initiation that we have in our people. Because usually just, you know, those that are 39 years old, 40 years old, or even 50 years old, they get into this diet.
E sempre vivi na floresta.
And I'm always been living in the forest.
E quando eu fiz a dieta, senti que dali pra frente não tinha mais volta. Eu tinha que dar continuidade, porque ele também já estava muito velhinho.
So when I did this diet, I understood that from that point ahead, I couldn't choose to go back, you know, because he also was getting older.
E quando voltei para casa com o Butum, eu fui assumir a responsabilidade de ser líder, o mais jovem também da aldeia.
And when I went back to my home, that's the Miwkoʔ village, I took over the responsibility of being the leader and also the youngest leader of our people.
Eu me casei muito novo, tenho 4 filhos, né, já com um filho com minha esposa.
So I got married really young, and I have 4 children, and I had back in that time just 1 children with my wife.
E falando a nossa tradição que a gente não escolhe o nosso destino, quem escolhe é o Criador.
And we say in our tradition that we don't choose our destiny, who chose it is the Creator.
Então, eu não sou filho, meu pai não era liderança, meu pai não era uma pessoa importante na aldeia, mas eu fui escolhido pela força espiritual e pelos ensinamentos do Tatá, o que precisava ser feito para poder dar continuidade, e hoje estou aqui com vocês.
So I am not a son of a leader to carry on something. I was just chosen by the Creator and throughout the spiritual force to carry on and to have this responsibility throughout also the teachings that Tata left to me. So today I'm able to be here with you all.
E o que ele queria muito era que a gente compartilhasse e criasse aliança daquilo que a gente estava vivendo.
And what he really wanted was to us to share the things and also create alliances. So in order to share what we live back in the forest.
Porque assim como nós precisamos de vocês, vocês também precisam de nós.
Because in the same way that we need you guys also need us.
E hoje estamos aqui discutindo, né, compartilhando esse momento, essas histórias e também desenhando o futuro.
So today we are here discussing this moment, you know, and sharing our stories and also drawing the future.
Para resumir, sim, a minha vida toda foi Netá com Tatá, e isso foi a conexão maior, não só minha e dele, mas sim do Criador, que o Criador deu um filho para ele poder cuidar e preparar para hoje estar aqui junto com vocês, dando continuidade. Muito obrigado.
To summarize, the biggest gift was our connection, you know, for both of us, because the Creator gave a son to him to raise and look after, in order to me, to carry on what he left to us, so we can give continuity to it. So thank you so much.
So Oona, I'd like to understand, go a little bit deeper into something you started to share when you were talking about land stewardship. I'd love to understand how the experience of stewarding land has impacted you, and how has it evolved your perspective on what it means to be a human, to feel responsible for a specific piece of land.
Thank you.
It's okay.
So I live on 20 acres, and with other families and children, and we have visitors that come through, and we have people that live with us. Thank you. You know, I became, as I suppose, like in my mid-20s, I became one of those people that's like, let's buy land and let's live together and we can raise our children and make beautiful agroforests and food gardens and let's just do it, you know. And that most of the time that conversation just stays a conversation, stays like a certainty of a seed that we all have, that we have, you know, that feels good. And I had the immense privilege of going down to Yelamu, where I was there with this man, this is an incredible man, not too far from where Rasu lives, this man called Becky Bianco, who's got, you know, planted like 3 million trees, I don't know, it's just, he is a force, and he has a community, and he has land, and we went to visit him to support the planting of the gardens and the regenerating land that had been destroyed. And my husband and I suddenly realized, I was like, it's possible, we can do it, we can just do it. Because of his example. And then we had, again, the immense privilege of being able to actually find land that we could buy with friends that wanted to invest and be a part of this dream. And I thought it was going to happen and it was just going to be like living the dream. And it turns out that it is totally living the dream. And it is also living the nightmare, because everything happens so slowly. And there is so much work that we just don't know how to do. And we bought chickens and we had to slaughter 11 roosters as an emergency because we just didn't know that they were roosters and they were all killing each other and hurting our chickens. You know, things that my grandparents would just be they are turning in their graves that I don't know how to do. Just very basic things of life. You know, we were talking about Brock earlier, Brock Dolman, who is another, for me, just a great source of inspiration. You know, I think he's Indigenous by culture for sure. And he understands water in a really particular way. And we studied with him. I did my PDC over at the OAEC and really trying to learn. And our friend Timo, who is working with Rasu in his village and also with Eric Cardo over there. Hi, Eric. And you know, people that know how water moves And it's funny because, you know, one of the stories that I heard from the Awanawa really struck me. And they said, you know, Matsini and Nishiwaka both said this, that the water is not going to go anywhere. It's not just going to disappear, it's going to shift, it's going to change places. And the people that understand the water will understand how to move with it so that we can live. And there's a lot of different ways of understanding water. And so that's really the journey that I'm on, and it's extremely humbling and really inspiring. And it's land and water, the way that water, we just re-landscaped our whole garden to slow seep and sink the water, and it's just, it feels so good. We cleared up our creek and just redid a whole big mess that we inherited from the previous owners. And our neighbors just the other day were like, what did you do to the creek? It's amazing, you know, just upriver, because now their water's flowing. And so it's also extremely rewarding and gratifying, but it's very humbling. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. So, Dawn, I have a question for you related to something that Oona shared, and I'll give you this dry one here.
Look at that one.
Yeah, exactly. Can you paint a picture of what California, for example, might look like if it really fully embraced some of the practices that you hold? What might we see that would surprise us, or what would transform around us to start to embrace some of these cultural practices that you steward?
Wow, that's a great question. And I can start from just saying that I also am a rural landowner, and I would say that, like, in 20 years of living in place up in the southern Cascades, that I've taken a piece of land that hasn't seen wildfire in over 125 years, and a forest that's very thick, to restoring it to what that landscape needs. I live in a place that's not our ancestral place. It's in the Miwkoʔ language country, but I steward that land as the way that the ancestors of that place would have wanted and would honor me for. And I have the respect from the local tribe of Miwkoʔ for doing that work, and we work alongside each other elsewhere within that landscape. But I was sharing the story downstairs earlier, like in 20 years of doing that stewardship, putting fire on the land at the right time of year, I see an accumulation of biochar on the soil that's over 2 inches thick, that is restoring it back on the land, that allows for that water infiltration to occur, that we have orchids that come up that follow the fire, that we have a whole diversity of birds. One of the birds that I steward for is a species called the band-tailed pigeon. You guys are familiar with the rock doves around here? These are native pigeons that are pretty rare within the state. When we first started out, there wasn't very many of them, and now I consistently have a flock of about 30 that come around every day, and they forage in the area where we burn to eat acorns and other things that are there. That's just one example. That's in like a Sierra Nevada mixed conifer forest. Same thing. Think about it in the oak woodlands, in the areas around here. Travel down the peninsula. You look at the valley oaks, the blue oaks, the black oaks. They are the bathtub ring around the state of California in the foothills, and where we've been stewarding with our ways of burning, working with students, working with the local tribes, etc., across the state. These places are becoming much more resilient. We're seeing more diversity of native species that have mostly been displaced because of non-native annual grasses that have taken over our landscape. And when we put that fire back into place, we see, 1, water. 2, we see that these perennial grasses and forbs that come back in really bring a diversity that supports everything from native bees to more diverse bird species, etc. And then I think about, and I'll share this later on today, about the wetlands and the opportunities that are there around the stewardship of wetlands. And so combining all these things, and chaparral, I forgot about the chaparral, the scrub communities, like these are places that have become more dense because we haven't been applying the right kind of fire into these places. And like a lot of our foods and medicine and fiber come out of these areas, and that we need to be stewarding these to minimize the spread of wildfires. But then that right fire also helps to create a balance of water within the landscape. So combining these things, I see that there's really an opportunity around really addressing the climate resilience aspects, that we set ourselves on a trajectory that, one, we maintain biodiversity, as was noted earlier, indigenous people steward, a vast majority of the diversity of the world, but where we haven't been doing that, we lose it. So we see the biodiversity, we see things like carbon sequestration happening, we see the ability to address sea level rise, and all those things work in a way that this landscape has evolved with in the time that we've lived in this place ancestrally. And now we're bringing you all along with us because we finally have a place where the state at least is listening. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do one final question for each of you that's the same question, and we'll start to bring us to a close because we are about to be fed, which I know some of you might be interested in. So I'll start with you, Will. If you had to suggest or encourage one thing for people to take home, for people to make a specific behavior change related to anything you've seen or learned that feels relevant to this topic, what would you encourage people to do differently tomorrow that they might not have considered?
Learn the skills to take effective political action guided by the earth. And I think those often feel separate for folks, but the training that I run was something that we've evolved over the past 6 years. And a part of it is, well, I'd say two things. Most folks in the United States have actually lost the understanding of how to take effective political action. And even a generation back, that was there. 2 generations back, everybody was involved in running their towns, their farms, their range. That's broken down.
Yeah.
Politics has become nationalized instead of being local, and if we use local politics, that's the school where folks learn. And so the skills, and to say like one quick thing, everybody tells the story of Rosa Parks, like she was this plucky little woman who decided to not give up her seat. No, she was a trained organizer. She had been to the Highlander Institute. She'd been involved in politics for a decade. She knew how to take advantage of a political moment and mobilize her entire community. It's not Mr. Smith goes to Washington. It is learn the political skills. But then those also have to come from being guided by the earth. Learning to listen to the earth is the other part of it. Because that ability, like in the training that we do, we have a regular weekly practice of when folks are making their action plan for their community, we ask them to go to a place in their ecosystem, read their plan out loud to nature, and just listen for what they hear in return. And so that it's not that complicated, right? It seems big, but in some ways it's just that element of listening to that quiet inner voice, learning to discern what's ego and fear and what's earth. But what people come back from our training is, when they do it, they are finding that they are guided to know who to talk to. They bump into the person that they need to. They tell a story about what happened to them at the river that the mayor is really touched by. That element of being guided and taking effective political action, for me, is the heart of how we move out of this crisis.
Thank you.
All right, same question. So I think one, like the vast, maybe not all of you in this room, but maybe, who knows? I would say that one of the biggest challenges we face is that we live in a society that's generally disconnected from our natural world. And we need to reconnect. We need to take the time to spend time in place, be present, to understand what the world is communicating to us. And as a teacher, I teach my students to open themselves up to what the world is communicating. And that if they're willing and accepting, the spirit of the land will communicate through them. What needs to happen? In Miwkoʔ language, in Miwkoʔ, we have a word, alelte. It's the root word. But like, I cannot help but see the world communicating. It actually means to read, but we don't have a written language. It means to sense the world around us. And that sensing is our 5 senses plus the intuition and spirit. And so if you root yourself and ground yourself in that place, then you have the ability to know what the land needs and what you need to be doing for it. And the second part of that then is actually following through with that action. Everybody has a responsibility to be a steward, and we have to not expect that the government's going to do this for us. We have to be part of the solution. So you all are a part of the solution. And I think about a conversation downstairs earlier, you know, like saying how in our language we ask each other hello, like our greeting is hidi waiching, means like, what are you making? And so the question I've been liking to say about this is like, well, what good are you making in the world? I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So when my husband gets sick, the best way to take care of him is to just leave him alone. Like, he does not want any fuss, any chicken soup, any vitamins. He's just like, so that's very different than when I get sick. When I get sick, I love a fuss. You know, I'm just like, take care of me, like, you know, that's just like, let me know that you're thinking about, make me some tea, you know, like, stroke my head, you know. If I took care of my husband the way that I like to get taken care of, it's no good. And if he, you know, and it's the same applies to him. And so you have to listen in order to take care of the things that you love. You have to listen for how to take care of things, and that's something that I've realized I didn't really know how to do in like my late 20s. Take care of things, take care of food, take care of my work, take care of my laundry, like take care of, like, you know, not mixing the whites and the colors, like it's like, you know, because that it lasts longer. No, not too, you know. So taking care of our world, of our life, like of ourselves, of our bodies, of like their food, these things, like it takes energy. But the great thing about it is that the energy, you think it's going to take more energy, because the energy that it takes is love, and love is free, and it's the passion of taking care of the things that you love is just so enlivening and invigorating, and it's and it gives you more, because that reciprocity, that giving care, it just feeds you back, and it just goes back and forth. And so that's my trip right now, is like learning how to take care of life, right? How to take care of life, and it doesn't need to be this grand gesture. It can just be like a meal, a phone call, you know, or like you know, some tea, or, you know, or watering the garden, doing big landscaping projects, taking political action, like however it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bom, essa pergunta é uma pergunta muito boa.
So this is such a good question.
O que você pode fazer no dia de amanhã?
What can you do on the day of tomorrow?
Primeira coisa, se você sente no seu coração o que você está fazendo é uma coisa que não está, que você não está feliz com aquilo.
First of all, if you feel within your heart that whatever you're doing, you don't feel good with it,
faça ao contrário, diferente. Tenta fazer o que você não fez.
so just go and do the opposite, differently. Try to do what you haven't done yet.
Porque aí você está procurando uma resposta não para os outros, mas para você mesmo.
Because then you're looking for an answer, not for like other people outside, just to yourself.
Nós viemos aqui discutir, falar, compartilhar coisas que a gente sente no nosso coração, que nós estamos numa direção.
We came here in order to discuss things that we feel in our heart to give a direction to it.
Qual é a maior nossa preocupação hoje na Terra?
Well, what is our biggest worry today on Earth?
O que nos afeta hoje aqui, nesse momento agora?
What most affects us in this moment right now?
O que nós estamos vendo nos jornais, nas televisões?
Well, we haven't seen in the newspaper, in the television nowadays.
E quais são as consequências que está sendo de cada ação, de cada pessoa que hoje está no poder?
And what are the consequences of each action of the people that nowadays are in the power?
E esse poder sendo usado de uma forma muito que está puxando a terra, as pessoas para um lugar muito difícil, muito forte.
And this power is just leading people to a really a strong and hard challenge place.
Que eu tenho certeza que nenhum ser humano quer ver guerra, quer ver luta, quer ver destruição.
Because I'm pretty sure a non-human being really wants to see war, destruction and fights.
O que nós queremos é estar bem, estar feliz, comer, beber, dormir e ter saúde.
What we want is to be good and have food, eat, drink, feel good and be healthy.
Então você que está aqui hoje, você que vai nos ver.
And so you that are here today and you're seeing us.
A melhor forma de você cuidar da terra desse momento agora.
The best way to you to take care of the earth right now, this moment,
é cuidar de quem vive lá, cuidar de quem hoje sustenta a humanidade, que são a natureza, que são os povos indígenas.
Is to take care of those that live there in the forest, those that are taking care of nature, that are the indigenous peoples.
É cuidar de quem cuida daquilo que hoje mantém o mundo vivo.
Is to have to take care of those that take care what actually keeps the world alive.
E onde nós vivemos, nós temos muitas coisas que a gente está hoje buscando para sobreviver.
And nowadays, where we live, we have a lot of tools, a lot of things that help us to sustain us to survive.
A nossa missão é sobreviver com saúde, com tranquilidade, com paz.
And our mission is to survive with health, peace and tranquility.
E a sua missão, se você quer ajudar, procure os projetos, procure as pessoas que estão hoje trabalhando para que isso venha essa transformação.
And our mission, if you wish to help, so just seek for those people, seek for those projects that are helping to change and bring this transformation.
Tragam as pessoas que você acha que pode ser mais um guerreiro, mais um protetor, pode ser mais um guardião desse momento, que hoje nós estamos trabalhando ao contrário do que o mundo está vivendo.
And bring people close to it that you think that can be one more warrior, one more protector, one more stewardship that can help to sustain the moment that we are living nowadays.
Todos juntos somos fortes.
All together we are stronger.
A união faz a força.
The union makes the strength.
Então, vamos embora.
So let's go.
Vamos cuidar um dos outros.
Let's take care of each other.
Enquanto nós temos tempo.
While we still have time.
Enquanto nós temos oportunidade.
While we still have opportunity.
De fazer a diferença.
Of doing something different.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you to Ria Hanewa, thank you to the host, thank you to all of you for coming, thank you to our amazing guests and speakers, and I feel really blessed to get to be part of conversations like this.
Thank you to all of our panelists today for your time, for your wisdom, and all of our guests, attendees. We all hope this was inspiring and motivating and activating to all of us to, like Versu said, to work together in union and to embody the living wisdom of the intelligence of the earth.